We have a former Chief Justice in the studio. So, issue of alternative leadership, alternative political leadership, as you were saying, Willie. Very many civil society organizations over time coming up, many other forums coming up, social justice forums around the country, individuals who come up and they speak out and they say, I'd like the country to take a certain direction. But all of these are pockets all over. They are different. So you'll have a political party here, you'll have a civil society organization there, you'll have an individual there who's very vocal but says they don't want to associate themselves with any vehicle that's a political party for one reason or another. How do you bring all these conversations together and then create a critical mass that can then make that change, bring about the transformation?
Yeah, I mean that's the crux of the matter, really. How do you bring these movements that talk about transformation, and they are, because when you look at the social justice centers that are now over 40, they have a particular issue. If it's Mathare, the Dandora and others, is extrajudicial killings, and they are doing that very well. There are others in Kisumu, others in Nyeri, and they're still being, created. And they take certain issues. I've mentioned decolonize. That is their struggle. You have others dealing with environment. The coordination, as you say, is important, and these movements will come together. I think in 1997 NCC happened, and there were so many movements that came together, and you could see who the leaders were, and we worked with opposition political parties that wanted also a new constitution and so forth. So at the moment, what I see is whether it's Linda Katiba or whether it's Kongomanola Mageuzi, it's again these movements coming together. The only difference this time around is that they are not looking for opposition political parties that are established because they don't exist anyway. They can't go to Wiper. They can't go to Amani. They cannot go to ODM. So as we speak now, there are, 3 political parties that I think are radical, and they are different, led by young people. Whether it's Ukweli, where Mwangi is, and Nduko and others, or the woman called Okolo Mwangi, and Chifa, or young people. Whether it's the Communist Party of Kenya, that has people like Buka, they're all, young people. Then there's the United Green Movement, which is of Agustino Neto, all right? And the alignment between the movements and these political parties is something that has never happened before. Okay, because our movements in the 90s, we always said, as you have said, we are non-partisan. Okay, so we're not interested in in politics, but that says a lot. Because there's nobody who is, everything is political.
Precisely.
Everything that you can think of, even in the, in your home, when your kids challenge you about your dictatorship.
Right. And there's no democracy.
Or the dictatorship of the father. And they say, that's politics. And it was mainly because of the donors, giving money and saying that you can't support partisan political projects and so forth. That was, a problem. But for the first time, I see movements where the young people want to be MCAs. There are parties that are talking about transformation. They are saying that they want to implement the constitution.
Really?
Yeah.
everybody talks about transformation.
Yes.
All of them.
Everybody talks about implementing the constitution, the full.
Or changing it.
Or changing it. But there's something that you've mentioned, and I want to pick on it.
Sure.
The participation of foreign agencies in these movements, it has always brought a question mark as to whose interest are you really serving?
Whose are they serving?
Because donors don't give you money and just tell you to do what you like with it. No. They tell you this is the path that we would like to see our money following.
You'll bring in somebody else.
Yes.
Let's bring in one of those parties that the former CJ has mentioned. And this is Ukweli Party. The Secretary General of Ukweli Party joins us now in the conversation. And his name is Nduko Omatigere. Nduko, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And well, you've heard what we're talking about, alternative political leadership. And Willie has basically said, yes, so we have all these movements. We've got Kongamano, we've got Linda Katiba, and then there are political parties that are radical in the way they are thinking, the way they are doing things. The question is, how do you bring them all together? And then there's the issue of partisanship. But let's start with the question that CT is raising. Political parties that receive some sort of financial or technical support from foreign governments or foreign organizations, whose interest do they serve?
I think you're talking about Jubilee.
Because let's just go right to it then.
because they receive a lot of technical and political support from China, from the Chinese Communist Party, although they're not a communist party. And so, as you said, of course, when you
Chinese Communist Party really communist, if you look at China. But anyway, carry on with what you're saying.
That's a debate for another day. But every month there are droves of Jubilee cadres who are sent to China for technical training, and the contradiction you see is like a chameleon. You're being supported by a so-called communist party, but your behavior here, we know it's far from that. But for smaller parties like Ukweli, the issue of foreign funding is out of the question. Actually, the struggle of political parties in the country, if they're not parties owned by the barons in power, is financial resources. Because it's the members who dig into their pockets to support party programs. And that's why it becomes an uphill task. But the big question is, why are we entertaining a situation where the regulator is blind about the sources of funding for the bigger parties? Of course, we know apart from the foreign funding, there are also the local corruption networks that support the usual suspects, the big guns in power. And of course, whoever funds them has to put their demands on the table. And we are not surprised that these parties, the big parties, end up being anti-people, anti-Kenyans. And the interest they seem to pursue is far from the national interest.
So what's it going to take? And I keep saying that, if we're getting to that place where leadership must be transformed, and also asking the other question, Nduko, that how then will you get to the point where Kenyans realize that the leadership under which they have been for the longest time may not be doing them the greatest service, and then say, we are actually going to move. We want to make this move.
I think what we are trying to do as the three political parties that are coming together as a united front to address these issues is to engage with the Kenyan public to reverse the political cultures that were introduced by Kenyatta 1, by Moi Kibaki, and Kenyatta 2 now, where politics is viewed as a game of patrons competing to outdo each other. And the appeal we are making to Kenyans, the clarification we made for ourselves is that it will take a huge effort of mobilization, of public education, of public engagement to get Kenyans to take Chapter 1 of our Constitution seriously. And that's the chapter that gives us the sovereignty as the people. And if we exercise Chapter 1 to the letter and its spirit, then you find that the people in power should serve the public, and the public should take their rightful space in the politics of the country. And so for us, transformation is Kenyans taking politics seriously, Kenyans taking political organization seriously, Kenyans taking a closer analytical view of who gets to be in power, and changing the criteria that has been used dominantly since independence, because the criteria has been if you are wealthier, if you have been involved in scandals, you're basically a thief. Big house in the village, you drive big cars, you fly helicopters to meet villagers at funerals, then that becomes the determinant of who gets into power.
But Nduko, how do you plan to change this?
It's really engaging Kenyans on these issues and comparing that. We've tried these bandits since independence.
But the bandits are also engaging the same population you're engaging.
It's a game of hearts. It's a battle for the souls of the citizens. And one thing that we've done is that previously we've organized in our smallness as political parties, Ukweli organizing in its corner, the Communist Party organizing in its corner, the United Green Movement organizing its corner. And the hope we have is that when we pull our different advantages, when we pull our different constituencies together, because where the barons beat us is that they are organized, they've captured power, and they know what they gain by being in power. So it's really a contest of
Nduko, you're not answering my question. I apologize for interrupting you. I actually like what you're saying, but it is what any politician, would-be change agent would say. So if what you're saying is to gain traction, surely the how-to should take center stage, not what is. The what is, we understand, we know, and what you're putting it very well, but how exactly do you plan to go about implementing these wonderful things that you're saying?
The how-to
Yes.
is the organizing that we are doing, is the outreach that we are doing with citizens. It's the civic education that we are doing with the citizens. And I don't agree with you that these barons are doing the same thing, because the barons will mount the stage and their manifesto
But
is...
how then are they still in power and they continue to be in power if they're not doing the same thing? And they have followers, and the followers don't decrease, they seem to increase.
Why they are in power? Different reasons. These guys mostly will... They steal elections. And I want us to be kinder on Kenyans when we blame Kenyans that you're the ones who elected them. It's contested whether actually Kenyans elect these people. It's contested whether many people who win elections get declared to be leaders. We are talking about a rigged ecosystem of political contestation. And so there are issues about electoral justice that form part of our agenda, apart from the public mobilization that we are doing, that eventually we have a credible electoral system that where votes are actually counted, and when people cast their votes, those votes count. So what we are seeing is that the criteria of engagement of the people who have dominated power in this country has never been around issues. They've never been around issues of food security. They've never been about issues of addressing the housing crisis in the country, addressing unemployment and poverty, addressing the kind of indebtedness that they're getting the country into. We've not got to a situation where political engagement in the country is based on everyday issues that affect citizens, and that's what we are trying to change.
And how do you plan to mobilize people to get to this phase that you are saying you'd like to see the country in?
We cannot eliminate the place of education and organizing, of engaging Kenyans where they are, and in our political program, it's basically turning political organizing in this country on its head, that we start talking with Kenyans, being analytical, that yes, you've lived in a situation where tribal lords who end up getting into parliament.
Nduko, you do know that you're theorizing here, nicely so, but you really are theorizing, because I'm asking a very specific question, and you take me back to where we've come from. I actually even agree with your perspective, but the how to is important, because what you're saying is what people hear civil society saying. After every election, we hear all these things, and in details, and we're even given data. But how, specifics. Apart, when you say you're going to engage people and you're going to talk to people.
How
So-
different? Maybe
Yes.
what you can do, CT, is let's start with these so-called barons. How do they organize? How do they engage with the people such that they're able to get the followers? How do you see them doing it?
First of all, they are very religious people. You know, Willie brought in the subject of religion, and I want to expound on it. You see, people coalesce around a religion, and they either is a leader or they choose a leader who seems to be able to promise that they will take them to whatever Canaan that particular religion espouses. But my view, Kenyans have all coalesced against one religion, one, and they all seem to be in agreement.
Around or against?
No, they are for this religion.
Which one?
It is the material religion. They get the God is economic and financial gain, and the religion revolves around it. So anytime people think of leaders, Mr. Nduko mentioned it well when he talks about people who drive big cars, they seem to exhibit that thing that people seem to like, and people hope that they will also get to. It's not as though people don't know what sort
So
of
they're
leaders they have.
pulled in by the material
Yes,
wealth.
but the reason why they are pulled in is because they've already subscribed to that religion.
Okay.
It isn't as though they're being forced.
So if I could help, maybe ask a question, and maybe to Nduko and Willie at the same time. Maybe you can both have a go at it. So if I hear what you're saying, Nduko, is then you need to begin to show Kenyans an alternate possible reality whereby they would not be dependent on this religion to be able to meet a need that they have, which seems to be what the barons are using today. Right?
How easy is it to
Right?
move someone from
So
their faith?
if
There
to
you see.
show somebody that this is actually what you could benefit from. If you talk about the religions that came onto the continent, there was something that people believed before that,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Then
And
there
they were
was an
able to move
alternative.
to another religion.
yes.
So there was something that they were shown. There was something that they were shown, placed before them, that they thought, okay, hold on, why don't I try this? And before you knew it, people began to mushroom around these ideas. So do I hear you saying that it is possible to present an alternate reality to what people see today that would then make them make the decisions about changing who their leaders are?
Yeah, I think so. I think when he talks about politics of issues and he talks about changing that reality, that's what I was calling hard work. If you are talking to young people, for example, and this has to be very continuous, and that's what the parties have to do, where you look at their material needs. Because what Muga is saying is the same thing. He's basically saying the narrative is built around something. So we've got to build this narrative about the material interests of young people, where you basically talk about education, you talk about health, you talk about the right to work, where work for me is the basis of human dignity. And if you don't work, you know, getting handouts from everybody will not help. So that is the crux of the matter. You to create that narrative, you have to tell people that this is what is going to happen. But you have to go further and basically show that you can actually do it. Because people will always be skeptical. They will think, as Muga was saying, you're just another leader who is coming out there. And once you capture political power, it's business as usual. So it's a difficult, obviously a difficult political struggle. But every day, and this is why political parties are very, very important, whether it's Ukweli, whether it's the others, because they will be able to pick on these opportunities when they come. Look at the corona, the COVID-19. People in slums were asking for food. They were asking for masks. They are saying, if you want us to wash our hands,
Bring water.
where is the water?
Yep.
Where is the water? And they even went further and basically said, asking the government, you know that the water in this town, it belongs to the cartels. The taps are closed.
Yep.
So open them. Okay? Now, when you get people talking about material things like that, and this is where, to answer Muga, you must have political agents that can answer that question and make that part of their mobilization.
Right.
Because people, this is a cry for a different narrative. And that's why it has to be captured. And to capture it, people have to get the imagination that they can be new leaders. And we saw that with the best example I give is the example of Mwangi in Starehe. Okay? Mwangi didn't have money. He was in Ukweli party. He mobilized people there on the basis that I don't have money, give me money. And he was able to collect, to get, I think, 16 million from people. Okay? And no, 14 million. But he got 16,000 votes. Okay? From there. Now, to answer your question, how you consolidate the 16,000,
Yeah.
that those people who believe that you are alternative to what, that Mwangi is an alternative to Jaguar and Bogo. Okay, how you consolidate that? It's the crux of
That's
the
the
matter.
crux of the matter.
Because you've got to stay with those people, you've got to stay in Starehe. That's what we
You
tell
have to be
Mwangi.
part of
So
their life.
you have
You
to
have to be
constantly
part of
engage
the-
them.
Constantly. That's you have to become a missionary, as
Right.
it were, the priest or the pastor.
Now I get what you call it.
Who stays there. And there are some people who win elections that way. I want to give you the example of the guy in Meru, okay, who later became, of course, Jubilee.
Yeah.
But even before that, there was a guy called Devuti who was who was in Dar with me. He used to be Museveni's bodyguard, actually, in Dar es Salaam.
When Museveni was a student.
Yes, he was always in military fatigues and he had bodyguards because he was president of USAF, which was a great organization. So he thought his life was in danger.
Always.
He needed always. Anyway, Ivuti, when we finished Dar es Salaam, he was given a job as a teacher, but he didn't take it up. So he went to Kitui South. And just like a pastor, he campaigned on food for this was 71. He campaigned for 3 years until the people actually gave him a bicycle, they gave him a piki, and they voted him in.
Right.
That's basically what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the young people with the parties like Ukweli and others with great radical messages, right? But they have to get, they've got to do what the barons don't do, because the barons never go to the grassroots.
They have got to do the hard work. And time for us to take another break and take a look at traffic and the weather. So we're having a conversation in the Situation Room this morning with our guest host, Dr. William Mutunga, former Chief Justice, and the Secretary General of Ukweli Party, Nduko Omatigere. We are having a discussion around alternative political leadership in the country.
Of 31, highs of 26 in Johannesburg, 14 and mostly sunny. It's clear in Lagos at 28, going to highs of 34 and lows of 26. And Kinshasa is clear at 25, with highs of 33 and lows of 24.
Spice FM. Nyeri.
Okay, so it's quite messy on Thika Road today. 2 hours and counting from Githurai to Survey, and that's what some people have had to face this morning. There was an accident. A lorry overturned in the middle of Wangai Mathai Road. So folks are asking, why can't you use it because of this? And the road has been temporarily closed, so if you're trying to go in that direction, you can't. If you're coming from Thika Road, you're going to have to stay on Thika Road, go through Pangani, go through Ngara, and then out towards Tomboya. You can't go round because of that road being closed there. Until they sort that out, those are the options that we have. The Eastern and Southern Bypass looking pretty good, and we also have some construction going on Bagathi Way, so as you're getting into that, just take note of that, shall we? All right, we'll take a look at what it looks like in about half hour or so. It is Friday, things looking a little bit crazy, but we'll keep in touch. Spice FMKE, let us know also on Twitter and text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
All right, 28 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. This and every weekday morning, you have CT Muga, Nduko, and Eric Latif. Our guest host today is Dr. Willie Mutunga, former Chief Justice. And our guest on the line is Nduko Omatigere. He is the Secretary General of the Ukweli Party. So this is Nduko, and this is Nduko Omatigere. Just to be clear, there are two different people here. So Nduko, coming back to you, and I mean, you heard what Willie said in terms of political parties, especially now the current political parties, and the hard work that needs to be done to go over and beyond what the old political systems have been doing, and to also go beyond what the civil society organizations have been doing, organizing in their own spaces, but now political parties going to the ground and addressing the people's issues directly. Is this what you're doing?
This is what we are doing. And Willie has articulated the issue of engaging people around their material interests. But then what else we are doing differently is projecting possibility, because you realize that with the politics that has dominated the country, it's possible for people to be hopeless, that change is possible. And I'll give you my experience. I contested for election in 2007. And most of the feedback that I received is that the things you're articulating are great. If they could happen, that would really be paradise on earth, but not in Kenya. and this is because people will compare the possibility you are projecting with what they know. And the challenge becomes, how do you project the new political proposition that it's actually possible to change how we are governed, how we are served, and how we experience life. And examples like what Governor Kibwana has achieved in Makueni really give credit that it is possible when you identify citizens of integrity, hardworking and competent to be in charge of public affairs. How we are governed can change. And we match this with also presenting a viable political proposition, viable in the sense that you can preach all you want, but if people don't see that the proposition you are giving is viable, that actually if we gave this or that person a chance, things could be different. And our experience in Ukweli is that in 2017 we fielded 13 candidates, including Boni Mwangi. None of them succeeded. But then the engagement we are seeing our colleagues having with their constituencies, that those constituencies are coming back and basically telling them the issues you raised, the possibilities you raised, we think that's what we really needed. Please don't give up, come back again. We may have, you may have been new. Kenyans will give you all those excuses, but we take them seriously that even when you don't win, but then you stay the cause. And what we did in 2017 is we set a very high threshold for our candidates that they were not going to give handouts. They were not going to use violent language or violent means in their campaigning, and they stayed the cause. There's actually one who was told what I was told in 2017, that the way you are campaigning so politely, you're not threatening your opponents. Maybe you have better chances of founding a church, because you could have a better career as a pastor than a politician. So the thing is that the constant context is it's a battle of what is popularly known, what people will engage with what they know. But then there is opportunity here that the three parties have come together, agreed on a common message, agreed on a common charter, agreed on a common way of campaigning, and without being naive, it's not going to be easy. It's an uphill task, but the task at hand is modeling the alternative that we seek. That it's not personality-driven politics. It's the possibility that actually Kenyans in their different voting areas can identify their leaders. And you will realize that in Kenya, most constituencies, the ward, the constituencies, they're represented by Nairobians. If people fly to their villages and contest, they're not averse with what is happening there. But we're encouraging people, what if your participation in politics goes beyond polling day? It also includes your identification of your leaders, supporting your leaders, people who understand the struggles that you have, so that we also reduce this influx of Nairobians representing most of the constituencies.
Nduko, where did you vie in 2017 and for what position?
I vied for Member of Parliament in a constituency in Kisii, Nyaribari, Masaba.
Okay.
Among my opponents were Professor Ungeri and story for another day, but it was interesting.
You got some wisdom imparted.
A lot of it that actually changed how I organized politically. Yeah, it was a good internship.
Yeah. I was just saying recently, there was this young woman called Adita in Kibera who ran under Ukweli party, and she was sixth. She did well, and these are lone voices in the wilderness, as I call them. But I think they need, to be, consolidated, and even this narrative that people are not going to pay anything because they don't have money. It's a good one, because people forget that the narrative of money started with the formation of KPU, because there was this confrontation between Kenyatta and Kagia that was actually aired live, where Kenyatta was asking Kagia, well, we were in prison together, what do you have? Yes, and the narrative very quickly grew that somebody who has built a nice house is the one who can represent you in parliament. Okay? And it's still there. I've been in the village where there is a funeral, and the greatest thief in that village comes driving a big car, and the pastor says, the man has come. He says, so when Muga was talking, about these realities, and I think that's what he was focusing on. That's what I've learned from him, that there are certain realities, they are difficult. You just have to think through how you crack them, and how long you're going to stay cracking, at them, because they're so embedded in the people's psyche. Okay?
Yeah.
The fact that a Kikuyu peasant can actually believe, with the jiggers and all, that he is in power with Huru, it's a disease, isn't it? Yeah. Or a Luo peasant who basically believes that he or she doesn't need to read the BBI because Baba has said
read
it's
it.
okay.
Yeah, said it's okay.
Okay, that's the kind of thing we're talking about, the strength and the genius of people who are in power. Okay, it can't be underestimated. So the young people have to come up with this messaging, and they have to stay on course, and if they get one MCA in a particular place,
That is progress.
that's progress.
Yes.
If they get, as Mwangi did, 16,000, you build on it.
16,000 is a lot of votes.
Yeah, you don't leave.
Yeah.
If he had divided for MCA, probably would have gotten it. And being an MCA in Nairobi gives you a lot of,
That's
a lot
power.
of clout.
Yes.
Okay, so and that's what the impression I get with the parties and a lot of the movements now, is they realize that you can't go with the election cycles.
But Willie, if you look at the narrative that those barons, as you refer to them, have, their narrative is cleverly crafted to give the impression that they actually represent the common man.
Yes.
And so where there's a gap is that you don't analyze and say, okay, this thing that this person says they're representing mean, what exactly is it?
That's right. That is now the counter narrative.
Yes.
I'm going to Nairobi to fight for you.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Tukiwa huko sisi tunawaambia.
Yes.
That is representing you. That is fighting for you. That's how it's translated.
In fact, in my neck of the woods, the narrative that many MPs had when they are put to task about the development record, they said, no, but we are going to Nairobi to help Baba fight with this thing here. Okay? And they're thinking, okay, but the CDF.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas the person who represents you should actually bear some likeness to you.
Yeah, this is why
there should be something that resonates between the two of you, that they, by the time they go to represent you,
Yeah.
they know exactly what they are talking about,
and
because they're living it.
And that's why I think very, very, very strongly that for the political parties that are coming up, they have to focus on this MCA thing, because an MCA represents a few people, and my MCA is a relative. So the pressure, to align is great, because we go and talk to our mother and say, look at your daughter.
Your daughter,
This
what
thing
is she
she's
doing?
doing. So when you start at the grassroots, up, after 10 years or so, you're going to get, people who, as you say, will not have to worry they will get money from people.
Yeah.
Because this idea of the citizens paying for their representatives, it has to be built, because it's one of the narratives that you have to to demolish.
Essentially, you need to own that leadership.
Yes, you have
It needs
to.
to be yours. When you contribute towards it,
That
you
person
own
owes
it.
you.
You own it.
Yes, you own it.
You own it, and this is also for the movements. You've got to have a membership. They have to act differently when you are choosing your candidates for MCA. Please, for heaven's sake, we can't rig.
Yeah.
Everybody does it very, very differently from what happens now, and you start giving people the imagination that yes, there's a change.
It's possible.
It's possible, and it's a religious country. So once you give them hope, and they see it, and it's that change comes with results. That's why when Nduko mentions Kibwana, who I know very well, from the university, and I've been to Makueni a lot to see what is happening and so forth. That's the beauty of devolution, because there are some counties that have shown that, whether it's Wajir, when the former governor was there, by just putting lights in the town, people started trading, because the snakes flew. They took off because of the lights and so forth. So there are a lot of these little stories. Even in my own county, which is Kitui, whenever I go back, there's always something that has
Something
happened.
new.
something new. Some bridge that was problematic has been built and so forth.
Some road that was problematic has been sorted out. Yes.
And you can wave down the governor and say, that road, needs to be graded. We have a wedding tomorrow. We have, the governor has to be there in a small place, and you wave them and you talk to the governor.
Yeah.
So these are the imagination, when you capture the imagination of people that something better
Can be.
Can happen.
can
Right.
happen, and then you kind of build on it. You bring in the Hitler formula of
Repeat.
I see the parallels then that you draw between how this can work, and also I guess Nduko, you can jump in here, but the parallels about how this can work and how it was done with religion on the continent, because they didn't come in shouting in the streets, follow Jesus. They built schools, and they brought the young into school, and then families got to see that.
And they built hospitals.
And they built hospitals. So your
They
sick
built
were taken
hospitals,
care of.
yeah.
Your children went to school. They became, skilled.
Yes.
And then they were able to get jobs, come back and help you.
Yes.
So in the process of all of that, then you began to tell them about this Messiah.
Yes.
But
that's
by
right.
the time that you were telling them about the Messiah, their illness was taken care of. They were a little bit more clever than they were before. They could trade and, get some money.
Yeah.
So it was easier for them now to hear what it was you were saying,
Yes.
because they were not hungry.
Right.
They had some hope. They were not sick.
Yep.
So like you're talking about here in Makueni, in wherever, in Kakamega, in Kenya, somebody cannot take her produce from farm to market because there's no road. So you can't build that road. She can feed her children. So when you come and tell her, Willie goes to her and say, come and vote for me, she's more likely to
She's gonna listen.
listen to you, because you've taken care of her problem.
Yeah.
You've not given her money in her hand, 50 shillings a day, she'll feed her children, then wake up hungry tomorrow. But you've given her a permanent solution to that thing that was plaguing her.
And also participation in Makueni, for example. It hasn't, maybe that formula hasn't been researched, hasn't been spoken a lot. The way they do the budgeting, they start from the village. So it goes up. And the people start monitoring what Muga is calling owning.
Yeah.
Okay? The ordinary people feel that they decided that the county is going to build a factory for mangoes or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay? And they were part of that decision, and they start monitoring it, and it happens. If it doesn't happen, they
question.
Yeah. So the aspect of of leadership, and I think in 2022, I see a situation where if this kind of change is going to happen, and the imagination is going to be captured, is to have governors who have done well, politicians who are saying they are different from the two factions. Okay, those who are saying tinga tinga, manga manga, tanga tanga, kieleweke.
Yeah, the manga.
And there is also another one
And
called
handshake.
tuanga tuanga, which I think is Jubilee. So if you can have a third layer, of people who have done very well with resources and so forth, and they team up with these young people who are coming up also.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going to win. It might, I don't know, but I'm saying
be a
even if
credible
it doesn't
third force.
win, it's capturing the imagination of people.
You're
that
planting a
That's
seed
true.
of
that
possibility.
yes, you planted. Elections are about seeking the opportunity to crack. As Muga keeps on saying, that narrative that has been so dominant, you chip it, and the people start thinking, well,
What am
This
I
can
hearing?
be.
So as we
This-
come
this-
to
yeah.
5 minutes to, we've got 5 minutes to end this interview. Nduko, as you're hearing Nduko, all right? As you're hearing, as you're hearing this conversation and how it's going,
yeah, it's Nduko.
Not Nduko.
not Nduko. Political parties, you guys have come together, 3 political parties. This is Ukweli Party, United Green Movement, and the Communist Party. You are forming a coalition. You're thinking of how best to approach the 2022 election, what you want to do, send a message differently. What would be the message that you want to give those who are watching you, those who are listening to you this morning, on the alternative leadership that is available in the country?
Yeah, one message is when you look at Kenya in between elections, there's a lot of clarity in the public about grievances, but then when we get to election time, the hearts go to the faction. So one thing we're asking Kenyans is to join progressive political parties and movements, because let's face it, the people in power made the political engagement really, really expensive. It's a costly affair. And where they outdo progressive politics because of money, they made the political contestation so materially driven. So one is joiners, supporters, are not just signing up for membership, but also contributing to our political programs. We need to move around the country. As Nduko said, the process has to be immersive. If there's anything we can borrow from the missionaries, although they are part of the political problem we have in the country, but then we can borrow the methods of immersing with people's struggles. You need to travel, you need to live with the people, you need to communicate. So it's signing up as members, but also contributing materially to enable our programs. But the second thing is that there's no shortcut to take back the country and take back political leadership, governance is a public service to the people. There is no shortcut. There is no replacement for Kenya's women and men of integrity being in positions of authority, as president, as a senator, as a member of parliament. So it's also urging Kenyans to really remember the grievances that they have. There's no solution if we don't fix the failure of political leadership and governance in the country, and asking them to give us a chance. And I'm saying giving us a chance because there's a cynicism that sometimes in our mobilizing work, particularly Ukweli Party, where we have forums in communities, slowed down a bit by COVID, but we also encounter this public cynicism that there's no way. You're telling us all the right things, but there's no way. People are resigned that the extractive networks in power are beatable. But we are asking Kenyans give the emerging political organizations and movements a chance.
Right.
Join them, influence them, not just signing, but contribute to the ideas. And take the issue of political leadership and governance seriously.
Thank you very much. Nduko Omatigere is the Secretary General of Ukweli Party. So the Ukweli Party has teamed up with other civil society organizations, United Green Movement, Communist Party. You're thinking on one way of presenting a third force in 2022. Willie Mutunga has been our guest host from 7 o'clock. Now it's time for us to ask you, would you like to stay into the next hour? We'll have a conversation about this thing called vaccine. But I know you are a busy man. And also, we've got to recognize that you've been seated for 2 hours.
Yeah, you said 2 hours.
You're a retired man, and you need to take your
I have
time.
something else at 9:30. So
Very good. Very good.
Eric, he's a retired Chief Justice. He is not a retired man. There are things he's still doing.
Right.
Yes,
right.
his just focus is now different.
His focus is different.
I
So,
don't
Willie,
know why people use the word retired. I favor the American formula where if you're president, they always call you president.
always call you president.
If you're CJ, you know,
You're still
always be
CJ.
called
Still
CJ.
CJ.
This thing about retired,
Don't like
you can't retire when the struggles are continuing.
Willie, your
Yeah.
parting shot and speak to the country.
So what do we've said a lot of things, but there's something that I wanted to say which we haven't touched on, and which is very, very, very important, and that is peace. Okay. I see the divisions that we have now might result in instability, in strife. I can see also the politics of revenge and vengeance, which I think is very, very, very dangerous. Whatever happens as people contest for power, peace becomes very, very, very important. And what I saw in Kisii, for example, MPs fighting, I am even surprised why the Inspector General of Police didn't have those people
Locked up.
locked up. I mean, there's a law, whether it's a fray, whether it's what.
It's a law.
The whole notion that some people are above the law just because they are politicians is really is nauseating. But without peace, and we saw this in 2008, this country can unravel. So I think the Constitution gives us those rights. People should, give their messages peacefully and so forth, and not threaten people and so forth. We didn't talk about that issue, which is again one of the things that narratives that people have to talk about, because these people, they are not only our leaders, but they are also very violent. Okay. And when they use the machinery of violence, which is the police and whoever else, you see, you have no chance in hell. Okay, so I think, we were talking here about neopolitics, and that's what we have to keep on talking about, because it's possible to have neopolitics. It's possible for Uhuru to retire or Raila, and not have the fear that the person who is coming next will haunt him, because he remains a citizen, of this country. I know when the discussion about Moi's retirement benefits was going on, I was opposed to it, but I later thought that is a good convention of making sure that those who are leaving don't feel like they are going to be haunted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if they are haunted and they have cartels and they have goons and so forth, they can make
They'll deploy the same.
Instability.
yeah,
deploy
and
the
you will not be able to rule, because so that culture of peace, non-violence, it's something that even alternative political leadership has to convince us that they are serious about it. Because there are some people I know who, if they came to power, they probably hang a few people. Okay, and once you start on that road,
It never ends.
it never
Never
ends.
stop.
So for me, the politics of peace, no vengeance, and even if you comply with the law, because those people have rights.
Absolutely.
They have rights. You can't just walk out and grab somebody's land and say you're grabbing it. You've got to pay compensation.
Right.
That's what the law says.
There's rule of law in the country.
Yes, we have a very progressive constitution that we can, deal with. So we've got to humanize our politics. I think it's become too inhuman. That's my message to the country.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Dr. Willy Mutunga, Chief Justice Willy Mutunga. Thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you.
us today, and we hope to have you again soon.
Anytime.
Asante
Thank
sana.
I don't have any time. We used to be told in public service, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. But nobody in public service has a busy schedule.
Truth told.
Thank you.